When we experience a tragedy in our human life, of course, in our humanity, in our feelings, in our thoughts, maybe, but especially in our feelings, in our human heart, we will maybe grieve the situation. That is natural expression of a situation that, like losing a loved one. Yes, this being ourselves is not becoming a stone or doormat. Quite the opposite. We will usually experience life freed from its limitations, from an apparent separate self, our feelings, our thoughts, our sensations freed from that tight jacket, from that tight shoe, as Ram Dass like to say. We will experience it even more direct. So there will very likely be emotion. We may cry. The grief of our human heart. We look at the life of saints and sages, at least the ones that inspired my life. They're very human. They cry, they love, they may even get angry in certain situations. The human expression in harmony with the experience situation will be there, and we can see that in those saints and sages. All else is a spiritual fantasy by some enlightenment that detaches us from life. This is how the mind experiences it. Nothing touches us anymore. This is the great paradox of human life. The peace and happiness that we're speaking about here, yes, Kaivalya, it won't be touched by that experience. It will not show itself in that moment as a positive emotion, as a happy emotion. It will not be a happy camper emotion, laughing, joyfully enjoying its life in that moment. It might grieve, it might cry, but not from the perspective of a separate self that thinks that something that was belonging to itself, that made it feel more complete, that relationship, that is lost. No. The understanding will be there, and there will be, often is, also by the passing of someone that we love very much, like Ram Dass, my teacher. I was here in Tiruvannamalai. There was, of course, a little sadness in my heart that I will not see him again in Maui. But there was, in the same time, and that is the crucial part to this question, a great joy bubbling up in my heart, a joy of knowing that he has left his body behind and is just resting in his essential self, resting in peace without the human pain that he was experiencing in his body over the last years so much. So this establishment in ourselves frees us from this perspective of a separate self that needs someone to be happy. But it doesn't mean that it does not enjoy someone else and to share that happiness. And when that someone leaves us, there is a grief in the human to be not able to share the human experience together anymore. That is true. But in the same time, the happiness that we're speaking here about is more this absence of lack that I need that one to be happy. It's a very subtle happiness, a very subtle peace that is prior to our emotions, to our feelings, to the sensations, and to the thoughts. So paradoxically, the situation outside looks like someone is grieving, like the sages and saints that we saw also crying. And in the same time, there is this deep resting and peace and non-lack, which is a happiness that comes more in the form of a contentment, it's all okay. Even I will miss you, my friend. I'm okay and you are okay. We are that okayness. So I can be a happy, crying camper. Or sometimes what I call happy shit. I can be happy while the shit is pouring out of me. I might be here in Tiruvannamalai in Arunachala and the mountain burns some old waves of depression in the form of feelings and sensations out of my body, and I can still be happy. I can be happy shit. This is the great paradox that is very difficult to grasp for the mind because it's made in polarity. It's always either or for the mind. But awareness, our essential selves, includes everything. It doesn't exclude anything. It doesn't resist. So it allows the grief or any other emotion to be there, and by that very allowing, the happiness through non-resistance is still experienced. Always. The emotions come and go. The grief comes and goes, but that essential self-contentment is always there as our self. That's the promise of all spiritual traditions, that it's possible to overcome suffering. So human pain will be there in the form of grief. Maybe even physical pain will be there in the body. But the happiness in the form of non-lack, of very subtle, gentle contentment and peace, this bubbling of the champagne, is infinite and eternal.